Welcome to another edition of Wildscaping. I'm Ann Meyer for Pegasus News. Today, instead of talking about the plants to put in your garden or how to plant them, we're going to talk about bird feeders to put in your garden. Texas, especially North Texas, is home to tons of beautiful birds, and in the winter we have the added advantage of the migratory birds that are here. The best way to see them is to make sure you have the right kind of material put out in the right kind of way, and then just sit back and enjoy. First, we're going to talk about what not to attract. Remember, it's a jungle out there, and all the birds are going to be wanting to feed. That includes the birds that you don't like. The birds that we really don't like are grackles. Those are the big, black, glossy birds that hang around supermarket parking lots and they go grackle, grackle, grackle. Unfortunately, grackles are native, so we can't do away with them, shall we say. But we don't have to feed and care for them. Another bird we don't want to feed and care for is the starlings. Starlings are a little bit smaller than grackles, but they're still black and they've got lots of colored speckles in them. Those are not native. They're actually from Europe. They got over here to North America and just went on a population boom because they have no natural predators. The third one not to attract is the cowbird. The cowbird is black on most of his body, but his head is brown. In fact, he's called the brown-headed cowbird. Cowbirds are an interesting bird. They're native to North America. In fact, they're native to here. What they do, though, is the females lay their eggs in somebody else's nest, which means that somebody else has to rear that female's children. And usually that task falls to a bird that is really having trouble coping with suburban life, such as cardinals. So these three birds, grackles, starlings, cowbirds, let's keep them out of the mix. You can do that easily by choosing the right kind of food and the right kind of feeders. So here it goes. First of all, if you ever read any kind of a book about bird feeding, they'll tell you that the best feed to use is sunflower seed. Well, sunflower seed is liked by everybody, but unfortunately it's liked by everybody, including grackles and cowbirds and starlings. So, cut out the sunflower. Instead, use this safflower right here. Safflower is just a white seed. In fact, it looks a little bit like a sunflower without the hull, but it's a completely different plant. And by the way, if one of these does fall in your garden and take root, it makes a beautiful flower. Safflower will attract all of the so-called good birds, but none of the bad birds. So that would include, well, pretty much everything that eats seed. Cardinals, titmice, chickadees, pretty much anything that likes to eat sunflower will eat a safflower, except for the bad birds. You can offer it in one of these house-shaped feeders, but be aware that doves and pigeons do like safflower a lot. So if pigeons are a problem, you want to restrict the size of the perch. So get one of these instead. Ta-da! Not terribly gorgeous, but let me tell you, this is cheap. You can get these little feeder bottoms off the net very cheaply. This is just obviously just a upended 2-liter soda bottle and some wire. But the feeding area, the perch area, is so tiny, excuse me, that a big old pigeon can't get on it. But a cardinal can still get this, and cardinals just adore safflower. You can also restrict that by using one of these pretty little satellite feeders. Pour some seed in here, and only the small little chickadees and titmice and the sweeter little birds can get in there, none of the big ones. Now, another one you can use, and wow, this is really a kind of an unknown secret of the bird feeding world, is peanuts. Peanuts out of the shell. There are certain birds that just adore peanuts, including woodpeckers. Offer it in one of these big old peanut feeders. Now, one problem is that grackles also like peanuts. And, and we've got a cat on the bird feeding table. There is something so wrong with this. Anyway, back to the peanuts. Grackles do like peanuts, so you can restrict access by putting up one of these guards. Push this on up there, and when you hang it, I'm not doing a very good job of this, but you get the idea. The grackles cannot get in here. Grackles hate to have their feathers ruffled. But the good birds, woodpeckers and blue jays and so forth, and the smaller birds can either get through here or peck through here and get what they need. So those are two excellent general foods to use. Off you go. Now, getting a little bit more specific, we're going to talk about millet. Millet, you can see here, this is not all millet, but I hope that you can tell these little round yellow seeds are millet. You can also find red millet. This is a type of food that's very often found in the grocery store, discount stores and so forth. It's sort of a brand X bird seed. Please don't get the brand X bird seed because it has a lot of filler in it. What happens is that birds will go to this, they'll knock out all the bad stuff onto the ground, and then grackles see that, and then they start mobbing your place, and then it's just a circus, and you know, you become a homicidal maniac from that. So instead, please get just pure millet. Now, the millet is an offering to the sparrows. We just can't get rid of the house sparrows in the yard. They're going to be there. So what you do is get one of these tube feeders, make sure it has plastic perches on it, and then just snip off the perches. Big birds like grackles cannot hang, but the small sparrows can sort of hang in there right here, clasp onto the hole here, and they can reach in and get the millet that they need. So that's a very cheap way to keep them out of the more expensive bird seed, and also make sure that you're not feeding those horrible grackles. And then finally, this time of year, we have the bird seed for the goldfinches. Goldfinches are a beautiful, sweet little bird. They're about sparrow-sized, and this time of year they have just a little tiny bit of yellow on them with a white and black stripe down their back. They eat pretty much only this stuff called Niger. See how very, very thin that is? It's just tiny little seeds. It used to be called thistle. You offer it to them in a special bird feeder called a goldfinch feeder that has very tiny little ports in it. You can also get a sock that's specifically designed for that. Very inexpensive, and the birds can sort of pull the little seeds through there. Now, if the one that you have or that you purchase does not have any yellow on it, be sure to tie a bit of yellow ribbon or gold cloth or something onto your feeder, because that will attract more goldfinches. They love the color yellow. One other thing that I've learned from experience, somebody tried to tell me, but I had to learn it by myself. Goldfinches really like fresh seed. If you have a bag of Niger, remember it's sometimes called thistle, if you have even an unopened bag from last year, it's been sealed from humanity, it's still last year's seed. So only the hungriest and most desperate of the goldfinches will visit your feeder. So do be sure to stock up on a new supply of Niger. Now that takes care of the bird seed, but remember your birds are also in your yard are also going to want to have some insects depending on the type of bird it is. So you can't provide insects, but you can provide a meat substitute for them. And that comes in the form of suet. A suet cake is very inexpensive. You can get one at the grocery store for 89 cents. You can offer it in this little suet cake holder, this little basket I think it's called. They're a couple of bucks at the grocery store. However, starlings like suet. If you hang this thing up The starlings are just going to grab onto the bottom of it and peck away and get fatter and meaner and bigger and stronger and nastier. So what we have found really works is this guy. It's a little bitty suet basket inside a much larger one. So there's the suet, and starlings, grackles, any of the nasty birds cannot get through here, but the little ones can, and of course the woodpeckers can get through underneath and take care of things. So they're that's just a terrific bird feeder there. Please remember a couple of items about where you place your feeders. One thing is make sure that you hang them high enough that a very acrobatic cat cannot leap onto the feeder. Don't hang them over a table like this, as you've seen. Even my very fat cat, who's down here right now, can jump onto this table, so she could reach this. Make sure it's far enough away. Also, try to get them away from each other. Goldfinches are really rather timid birds. So if you have these very gentle goldfinches over here on this feeder, and then you have the sparrows mobbing this feeder, it's going to frighten all the goldfinches away. So keep these far apart from each other, several feet away from each other if you can. Remember also that some bird seed will fall onto the ground. So if you have that bird feeder located very close to some bushes where a cat could hide, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and revisit that location. Please let me know what your questions are and your suggestions, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. For Pegasus News, I'm Ann Meyer.